Some of you probably use Fedora and never think about who keeps the project running behind the scenes, and honestly, that being possible is a really good thing. The users can go and do their thing, and the leadership just runs a good project and stays out of the user's way. The only time you actually need to think about them is when you really like the project and want to get involved in some way, writing documentation, writing code, making packages, and things like that. And I really hope that under new leadership, this can keep up. Because if you haven't heard yet, Matthew Miller, the Fedora Project Leader, will soon be moving on from that role. Now, I'll get into this a bit later. This is not like a negative parting. He's not like being fired or anything like that. This is completely positive. He feels like it's time to move on. Now, obviously, Matt is not the only person involved in Fedora. There are lots of individual contributors. There are lots of SIGs focused on various different areas. There are lots of little moving parts that make the project actually possible. But the reason why this is so important is you, unless you've been around for a very long time, probably don't know a Fedora that wasn't led by Matthew Miller. And I don't mean like 3 or 5 years, I mean much longer than that. Matt started his employment at Red Hat in 2012, but back then, he was not the Fedora project leader. Back then, he was mainly working on the platform architecture team, focusing on the Fedora Cloud project. He was also a very early contributor to the Fedora Legacy project. This is something that does not exist anymore and hasn't existed for a very long time, but this was basically a community-driven LTS project for Red Hat Linux and Fedora Core Linux. Red Hat Linux is the predecessor to Fedora and RHEL. That was the desktop offering Red Hat had before, and Fedora Core Linux is what Fedora used to be called. And just 2 short years later, Matt took up the role as Fedora Project Leader. This was shortly after the release of Fedora 20 Heisenbug. That is the first release of that year. Now, this is what I mean by you probably don't know a Fedora that wasn't led by Matt. Unless you've been around for at least 10 years, you didn't even know there was a different project leader at some point. Now, just for additional context, this was 2 years prior to the GNOME spin, the Fedora workstation, defaulting to Wayland on GNOME. Now, when all this went down, it was announced over on the Red Hat blog, introducing Fedora project leader Matthew Miller. Now, being Fedora 20, you could probably guess that Matt wasn't the very first project leader. He took over the role from another person, Robin Bergeron, who started in 2012. In those early days of Fedora, it was a lot less mature of a project. They had a lot more cycling of project leaders. It was still trying to work out where it sat in the market, why it needed to exist, and there was a lot more things that needed to just be ironed out. Now, I can't speak for every single interaction he's had and every single decision he's made and every little thing that's happened under his tenure as Fedora project leader. I don't live in his head. I don't live in his walls. But from the interactions that I've had with him back when I had him on the podcast, along with interactions I've had with him outside of that, from the interactions I've seen him have with various other people, whether that be in forums, whether that be in text form or video form, and from the response I've seen of him announcing that he's stepping down from the position of Fedora project leader, honestly, I think they're going to be really hard-pressed to find someone better for the job. At least from what I can tell, and maybe things are different behind closed doors. If you work on the Fedora project and you have something different to say, do let me know. But from what I can tell, Matt is basically the perfect person for the job. And I don't think just perfect person for the job of Fedora project leader. I hope not just his successor, but leaders of other projects can also take inspiration from the way that he conducts himself, from the way that he runs the project, from the way that he tries to, interact with people who are involved in Fedora, whether those are contributors or just the general user. Matt very frequently gets involved in discussions with Fedora project contributors, and not to just lay down the law. This is the way the project is going, this is the way that things have to be done. Obviously, there are going to be occasions where that is the case, where something is just not possible and there's no point even trying to discuss it. But most of the time, that's not what the problem is. There's differing opinions about the way that something should be done. And oftentimes, he's not just there to give his own opinion on what should be done, but he's there to facilitate a healthy discussion where people can actually get their points across without just, yelling at each other with nobody actually listening. But that's all dealing with the contributors, and you wouldn't have a project like Fedora if you didn't also have the users. And this is something Matt does, which is really, really nice. He doesn't just talk to the contributors and pretends like the users don't exist. We don't need to hear their opinions. He actually goes out of his way to talk to people that use Fedora. Over the years, he has done a number of AMAs over on Reddit. The first one 10 years ago, back when he first took up the position, then 8 years ago, 6 years ago, 4 years ago, and I don't believe there was one after that, just because Reddit's gone through some situations since then. But even so, outside of that, he talks on the Fedora discourse. He's quite active on Mastodon, actually talking to people. And that might not sound that important, right? But if you're a user and you feel like your concerns with a project can actually be heard, it makes you a lot more willing to actually go and report issues you have. Amongst other things, he also does the release write-ups in the Fedora magazine. Now, obviously, every project does some sort of release write-up, but oftentimes it's like, hey, here is the changes we've made. Here it's like, okay, let's actually just go and write a blog post. This is very similar to what System 76 is doing with their alpha releases, and yeah, you might say a lot of it is like fluff text, it doesn't need to be there, but it makes the project feel a lot more, personable. It feels like a project that's actually being made by people. Now, I've already mentioned that Matt came and did my podcast. That was done about a year ago now. Probably a little bit more because YouTube's a bit weird with the way they do their timestamps. But he's done a bunch of others as well. And the thing about a podcast, right, is if we're doing like 20 or 30 minutes, if you want to bullshit some sort of character, you can pretty much do that, right? You can get those dot points in your head. You can, navigate your way through that conversation. But after an hour and a half, across a bunch of shows, it is very, very difficult to maintain a character. And at least from what I can tell, unless he's a really, really good actor, Matt's just a good dude. And my honest hope is whoever next ends up in this position has this same level of community engagement, this willingness to go and talk to people, this willingness to do shows, this willingness to show that you are an actual person and there are actual people working on this distro. And to whoever ends up in this position, we don't know who it's going to be yet. That doesn't happen until sometime next year. Absolute free pass to come on the show whenever you want to. Happy to arrange it, happy to do whatever time you want to do. So, I will definitely be reaching out when that announcement is made. Now, like I showed at the start, let's go back to Matt's announcement of the situation. Fedora Project Leader Matthew Miller, a change of hats. Hi everyone, I've been the Fedora Project Leader for more than 10 years. That's half of Fedora's existence as a distribution project. It is my dream job, and I love it, and honestly, I could do it forever. However, I don't think I should do it forever. When I started in this role, I thought, I'm going to aim for 5 years, and you've massively overshot that. But when I got there, I felt like I just found my footing. It's one thing to lead a small team of 5 developers, right? You can get your head around that pretty quickly. But when we're talking about a project at the scale of Fedora, which obviously distro usage numbers are a little bit difficult to actually guess, but I think it's pretty fair to say that Fedora is probably somewhere in the top 5. I would even guess top 3 used distros. And with that comes a lot of people that want to contribute to the project, a lot of people that want to make various little changes, a lot of people that you need to know how hands-off you need to be, what you need to get involved with, where you can just let people go and just do their thing without worrying about them. But also getting to a point where people actually trust your opinion. Because if you just bring in someone new, sure, people might pretend like they care, but you need someone who people actually respect as a leader, who people actually want to listen to. Now, after another 5 years, It's time. The project is in great shape, we have high community engagement, stronger support than we've seen in years from our major sponsor, that being Red Hat, and increasing popularity and visibility in the whole Linux world. We build the distro of choice for new CPU architectures like RISC-V, and vendors ship our OS on laptops. Atomic image mode is awesome, we're on a good path for big infrastructure improvements. I want all this to keep expanding and more. To get there, I think we need someone with new energy and fresh ideas standing in my place. And that's kind of the main point. Matt has been in the project for a very long time, and he's been a project leader for most of it. People know who Matt is, people know what Matt is going to say, and there's only so many ideas that a single person can have. And eventually, maybe not stale is the best word, but you do eventually want to rock the boat and kind of bring in new ideas, bring in new energy, and just see what someone new can do with the project. Maybe there's something that just Matt was never going to think about. Stay tuned for a job posting from Red Hat and details about all that. I'm hoping we can hire someone awesome early in 2025 and make the official handover on the release of auspiciously numbered Fedora Linux 42. So, like when Matt was originally brought on, I would imagine this would happen sometime around June. You wouldn't want to do it like directly on release, right? Because directly on release, very busy time, people are dealing with issues, and you just want to wait a bit. But a couple of weeks after that, as things have kind of settled, as you're getting into the maintenance of that release and you want to start thinking about the next release, that's a much better time. And as I mentioned earlier, this is not a negative parting. I'm not going to leave Fedora though. As I said above, although it might not always feel like it from the outside, Red Hat support for Fedora is stronger than ever, and I plan on helping that grow even more. I'm stepping into a full-time management role in the Community Linux Engineering organization, so Fedora will still be part of my day job, just in a different way. Likewise, I'll be nearby as a resource for the upcoming FPL, that is the Fedora Project Leader. I tried to Google this, and I was like, wait, what does that actually mean? No, I'm just a moron. This is a big, difficult job, and I know from experience. Thanks, Robin. That was the person that he took over from. That it's crucial to have someone close who understands what it's like to provide support. And I want the next person to feel confident and up to speed in quite a lot less than 5 years. Over on the discourse, the response is obviously quite somber in a way and kind of sad, but it's hopeful and happy for the work that he's done, excited where the project is going to go from here and who's going to take over the role, and just hope the person is going to be as good of a leader as Matt has been over these years. I, for one, am very curious to see who steps into the role. Hopefully it's a face that people actually know, hopefully it's a face that people actually trust. But most importantly, hopefully it's someone who is ready to take on a very big role and fill some very big shoes, because there is going to be a lot of expectations for what you do, and early on you might be able to meet those just because you're not used to the position, but hopefully given some time, you end up understanding the role and can do as good a job or even better than what Matt has done over these years. But what do you think? Do you think Matt has done a great job in the role, or maybe you have a different opinion? And is there someone you would like to see step up to fill the position? I would love to know. So if you like the video, go like the video. And if you really like the video and you want to become one of these amazing people over here, check out the Patreon, subscribe to the Liberapay, linked in the description down below. That's going to be it for me, and I'm your leader now.